are very few of us that started their career coaching and finished their career coaching. But that's what I wanted to do. I had an opportunity to become an administrator, and I couldn't give up coaching. That's how much the word coach means to me. This all started when I was playing, way back then. The impact that the coaches that I had made on my life, it made it something I wanted to do.
He had a unique way of reaching kids on all levels. In the classroom, you go in the classroom and the kids were engaged and they enjoyed him. Football, baseball, same way. He'd come up with things to do to break the monotony of practice. And he could relate to kids, in a way that made them feel like, hey, I'm not in trouble, I don't have to do this. He's explained the best way for me to do it.
Him as a coach he was so great because he gave you the space to do what you wanted to do, but then was always there when you were ready to receive coaching and provided the best coaching, always.
He did not scream at you, but he demanded to get the job done. First of all, he demanded so much of you with the silence. So when you can't come off the field, he would, hey, this is what we need to get done. This is how the play is done. He did not yell at you. He showed you what to do. He demanded you do the job so someone else can do their job. And that's how Coach Harris was. I
got to work with the best kids in school. And the other teachers might not think, this kid was always trouble. My guys, they're great kids. I always thought I was fortunate in that respect. The players that I was working with, no matter what sport it was, were the best in the school because they're doing this stuff after hours, and you're asking them to put forth all this effort, all this sweat, all the tears, sometimes a little blood. It's a small percentage really of those that do the extra. And I got to work with the extra.
He always talks about how he has great players, but I think he's had players who see a high future for themselves and for their team, but it's because he was able to see that for them too and allowed them the freedom to move and to do things creatively in a way that's kind of unique, but then still is able to give them foundational techniques to help them go in that direction creatively with space while still maintaining the technique. And I think that's a lot of different jargon for he just allows you to be you, and you just love playing for him.
The 2000s when football's become really big at Fayetteville, he kept the same demeanor about him, and it was more like, hey, let's straighten this out and get it done versus yelling, screaming, trying to pump kids up emotionally. He was more methodical and let's go to work. And that's pretty much, Coach Harris.
So I've got the privilege of him coaching me for 3 years. Then after that, I worked with him for 7 years. So seeing how he was the coach on the field, how quiet he was, how mechanical he was about every detail, because he's a brain. There's no doubt about the man. He always took the time to explain every play, every single way that the play needed to be done. He went through it with us.
Coach Harris never wanted to coach anywhere except Fayetteville. But he probably looked at a couple of jobs, and he could have been a head coach somewhere else very easily. But he didn't want to uproot his family, and he had just such strong ties to Fayetteville public schools. He didn't want to go anywhere, and so I don't think he would have ever left.
I had my dream job. And that came back from the time that I was volunteering before I ever got hired into Fayetteville. I got to work with a gentleman named Larry Sherrill, who was the defense coordinator at the high school at the time. And again, I had enough respect for him and appreciation for him. That's the job that I wanted. I could have went somewhere else and maybe eventually, who knows, maybe not, become a head coach. I had my eyes on my dream job.
he doesn't give himself enough credit, because I'm so grateful to have Coach Harris, to have had Coach Harris as a coach during my time. I wouldn't, this is cliche, but I wouldn't have gotten to the University of Arkansas, wouldn't have gotten to the NFL if I hadn't have had such a fantastic coach in high school that helped me become who I could have became and who I was capable of becoming. And it's, you know, if he's not going to speak up for himself, then I will, because he's, if we had more coaches like him that were calm, that were patient, that loved the game of football, that loved seeing players, and even students too. He loved just being there and being and teaching and helping guide young people to a greater future, and that's what he does best. So it's just, he deserves all the credit in the world. He's changed so many lives, whether he knows it or not, and so I'm just so grateful that he's been a part of my life.
Again, it goes back to my philosophy of give credit and take blame. There were a lot of good people that I worked with and a lot of good people I worked for. When I say that, I mean the players. They're the ones that won it. I just happened to be along for the ride.